You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-hosts, we interview amazing guests every week. Ivan, are you there across the ocean, sir?
I am in Ukraine indeed, although we did have last podcast, I think we recorded in Ukraine, but I had to go on a family emergency here again. And I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm introducing Dr. Aaron Smiley, who is the co-founder of VetMed 2.0. He's a chief of staff advisor at Vetcor Consolidator Group. He's a chief of staff at two hospitals, Devonshire Veterinary Clinic and G Station Animal Hospital. He's a president-elect of the Indiana Veterinary Medical Association and holds a doctorate in veterinary medicine from University of Illinois. Personal information that we uncovered is that Dr. Smiley had two first jobs out of vet school. It was equine ambulatory and a mixed large animal practice for the Amish community. And his recent musical favorite is folk duo Johnny Swim's album Moonlight. Shawn, why don't you open up with the first question?
Ivan, actually, I've got a question for you. How's your day going?
Well, if I rate it out of 10, I think by experiential Ukraine, it's probably 10. By the fact that happened to me, probably a 3. So I was visiting my deadly ill grandmother at ER hospital. And while I was visiting her, my backpack with all my equipment was stolen from the trunk of the car, including my computer, iPad, and everything. So I'm looking at next 6 to 7 days, do all my work from just the cell phone that I thankfully bought a charger for in the Ukrainian store. So it's a pretty good day. Thank you for asking.
It sounds like you're knocking it out of the park today, my friend. And Dr. Smiley, welcome to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. Really great to have you here. The first question that I just can't help myself but want to ask, what was it like working with the Amish?
Oh, it's fascinating. So really hard work, very humbling work. The Amish are an interesting group of people. I was up there when the economy crashed. And for most people, they would move and relocate when the unemployment got high. But the Amish have such a tight-knit community that they don't move. And unemployment got up to 23% while I was up there during the downturn. So it was interesting as far as in very utilitarian. And as a veterinarian, I learned a lot of practical skills and how to be tough. So I appreciate that. It's definitely not Disneyland. And when you walk through, or you, as a tourist, you kind of drive through Amish land and everybody's in their buggy, you get this sense that like, oh, well, this is very quaint. But they are actually real people that choose to ascribe to that type of a community and that way of a lifestyle. And it's not the easiest thing. So I tell people I have 1 million stories in about 3 years of work. I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life, but very, very grateful for the experience.
Well, and it's really interesting. Yeah, it's totally incredible. And it's really interesting for us because our podcast is all about innovation. A lot of the time we talk about technology and, talk about the complete opposite direction. It's anti-technology. Yep. And what was it like to work as a technologist to some degree, given your background in this world that was completely absent of technology?
It was the technology, but not necessarily electronics, right? Basically, the overarching theme was, if you can read, you can do it. So there was always innovation going on because there were limits that they would put on themselves. So I never felt like, as far as in practicing, that I didn't have anything that I needed, because obviously they didn't put any limits on me. But watching them work and watching them innovate opened up my mind that it doesn't necessarily have to mean the latest gadget, right? It can be innovating with the tools that you have at your disposal. And if you can read and you have, a lot of simple machines, you can get a lot of stuff done.
That's well said. I can't wait to dive into the whole VetMed 2.0, the idea behind it, the business model, if there is one behind it, and what is it all about? Can you tell us?
So looking at veterinary mentoring, and I've served on a couple boards, the University of Illinois Alumni Board and then the Indiana Veterinary Medical Association, and it seems like we're always trying to take a swing at mentoring. And students, when they get out, it tends to rank high on their list of things that they would like. And in my interaction with new students and then new veterinarians, I ask them, how are you going to get a good mentor? And inevitably, they mark that up as part of their job search. I hope I get a good mentor in my job search. And in my experience in practice, that's very rare, to be able to find a good boss who's also a good mentor, because it takes so much time and energy. And so different aspects or different ways that we in veterinary medicine have tried to crack this nut is by creating lists of, okay, here's people that share common interests, and then a third party, whether it be the state association or a local association, tries to get people together that have common interests, but it inevitably kind of fizzles out. And so what the idea behind VetMed 2.0 is, what if we created a marketplace for mentoring? Because the mentors do put a lot of time and money and energy into it, and they have such a wealth of knowledge. What if there was a nominal fee that allowed mentees to match with mentors of their choosing?
That's incredible. That's a very interesting approach. Who is the payer on the platform? And I just want to dive into the business case. So the payer is the mentor or mentee?
So the mentee is the payer, and what we're going to set up is like $1 a day, so $30. The mentor can have as many mentees as she would like, as she can handle with the margin that she has in her schedule. And then what we're going to do is limit the interaction to the platform, to the app, so that the mentor still can keep up good boundaries. So the interaction will be, as far as unlimited text messaging between a certain set of hours, and then like a weekly video call that would be a half an hour. And our hope is that then the information that the older generation or people that have been out in practice can start to matriculate down at a greater rate to younger graduates. And even as far as, so I've been out of practice 10 plus years, I'd still love to have a mentor that's 10 years my senior to be able to ask questions as far as what does it feel like as your kids get older and parenting in veterinary medicine? And how does it when you get bored in practice, how did you fight that off and all those kinds of questions?
Yeah, it's amazing. The whole idea of mentorship is huge. As a technology entrepreneur, I've been lucky enough to have some incredible mentors.
Yeah.
Almost by accident. So I was mentored when I was in my early 20s by this guy named Charlie Keating. He had created a company called Maritime Cable, who ended up selling to Shaw Cable, which is the largest cable company in Canada. And this guy was incredible. I'd walk into his boardroom. There was 30 chairs in his boardroom. And I remember the first time I went in, I said, I'm here to see Mr. Keating. And I heard him holler from across the wall, send him in. And so I go in and he's sitting at this boardroom table. There's literally 30 chairs and there's two guys sitting with him. And I said, nice to meet you. I'm sorry, I'm not interrupting anything. He said, no, sit down. He's like, these are the people that keep me out of jail. And I was like, okay. What's happening here? And so he said, yeah, this is my accountant who was the head of Grant Thornton, the largest accounting company in Canada, and his lawyer. And he described them as the people that kept him out of jail. And the things that I learned from that guy in, I would say, a combined total of maybe 10 hours, have stuck with me my entire business career to date. So the idea is super solid, especially in this highly specialized field.
Right. Awesome. So with that, do you have any traction? And what do you think is the more, I assume that the mentees is I never actually know the word, but that's because I'm a foreigner. But the mentees, that's a new one for my vocabulary, the demand comes from them. So what is your traction like? Where are you at the product cycle? Are you having any customers, or are you still in infancy stage? Where is it? We're
in infancy stage. So we're in as far as beta to sign. And then our hope is to do the grand launch in conjunction with the AVMA Leadership Conference in Chicago in January. So I'm speaking at that event, and that's when we hope to launch the app. So we're in infancy right now and getting people to do early time.
That's awesome. And with your relation to the consolidator group, are you able to test it on the customers or on the network within the organization there? Are they aware, or are they collaborating? Hopefully this is okay that we will publish the podcast and talk about this. But is it collaborative with them? Do they have an interest in it?
Vetcor is very encouraging for us to communicate among clinics, and it's very conducive. There's a Slack channel that we have set up for veterinarians to share cases. This isn't specifically related to Vetcor in any way. It's just a need that I saw as I served as a volunteer in organized veterinary medicine across the entire profession. So not specifically with any consolidation group or any practice. It was just people looking for mentors, but the inability to find them. So like you told a story that was brilliant, that you just stumbled into a boardroom with this brilliant person, right? Not everybody has that stroke of luck. So how can we use technology to be able to bring wealth of knowledge in the mentor to the mentee who desires that wealth of knowledge. And it feels like it's a very small step to take.
And then the question I have is like, it's a great idea. How, like, were you sitting around beers and a napkin, or like, where did this come from?
I just stew. I call it putzing around. So I just like to think, and I kept, it's the adage is part find the need and fill it. And I would sit in these board meetings, and guys, they're like, oh, these students want mentoring. Well, what is mentoring? And so I think it was just me gnawing and chewing on that. And then having the idea, because, right, ideas always flow together, of saying, oh, well, this kind of feels like a dating app. Like, what would it look like? And nobody's dating. But, as far as basically, it's just two people that want to be able to pick each other. That's all we're talking about. Well, that technology is easy to get to. And so what's the cultural hurdle? The cultural hurdle is that there be a monetary transaction. Oh, okay. Well, are there any other sectors of the economy that pay for coaching or counseling? Yes, all the time. Oh, okay. So I guess it was just those small steps and 100 conversations with different people is how the idea came about.
Is this the first piece of software that you've built?
We're partnering with a company called Never Settle. So then I've got the Wizards of Smart who make everything work.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a conversation that we had a couple episodes ago with Stacy Stanty, where just like, you're a veterinarian and, you all of a sudden you decided you're going to make a piece of software. And it's really interesting. The software world is so challenging, being involved in software startups now, it's building software. I think it's the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So I'm curious the way you're envisioning it to work. So is it going to be sort of a matching sort of program where you look for interests on your career and then it connects you to the right mentor in there on this platform, or is that the idea behind it?
Correct. So it'll be a connection and then it will be a continued conversation. We've got a framework of what it looks like inside of that month chunk of time to be able to basically achieve goals that the mentee set. And so we model it off of like OKRs and a couple different things to be able to mold it into a template that then the mentor and mentee can get together and quickly ascribe goals for the next 30 days so that nobody's time is wasted. So then it'll be in month-to-month increments that the mentee then signs back up, either to switch to a different mentor or to continue or to talk about a different topic or anything like that. But our time frame is 30 days so that the mentee doesn't feel like she's signing on for an entire year, right? Because what if it's not a good match? We don't want you to be stuck in that.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess when you're going through certain specialties, let's say in your fourth year or something like that, you can get sort of, help in understanding a certain subject, or that could be another application for students or new grads or interns per se.
Absolutely. And it's interesting as far as the difference. As we were going through, I had an intern that was with the Veterinary Entrepreneurship Academy, Howard, out of the University of Georgia, and he did a great job. And we talked about what the difference is between job training and mentoring. And most veterinarians will get that job training. I mean, it's very rare for a senior clinician to not help you get the space dump when it's bleeding. But what is unusual is for the senior clinician to sit down and say, tell me about your dreams. What do you want to do with your life? Right? That's rare, and that's a different relationship. So absolutely there's job training involved, but even more than that, mentoring offers a different wrinkle.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. So one of the bigger issues, and I mean, we've talked about it before on the podcast, is the compassion fatigue, the burnout. And it seems so interesting that, this innovation around technology and around mentorship really can help. I mean, it's got to be top of mind for you and your team. So can you dive into that a little bit for us?
I 100% agree. So we come in and we're talking about mentoring because that's the need that the younger generation is articulating. And the reality is relationship is the answer to so many of those professional ills, right? From burnout to compassion fatigue, imposter syndrome. When you have a relationship with a person that you highly value, then their applause means so much more, right? It's not just your mom saying, oh, you're so smart, but it's a person that you admire going, yeah, you didn't do a great job, but you're going to get up. We're going to do that again. And then all of a sudden, right, now we get traction into being able to speak into those really dark places that I don't think any program can. It takes a relationship. It takes flesh and blood to speak into those dark places.
That's amazing. So I wanted to maybe dive a little bit into your experience with Vetcor. It seems like that's a group that's taking sort of strides and accelerating on the East Coast, I believe. As a veterinarian, how is that transition into the corporate group and into their sort of advisory and leadership position from where you were? Were you merging with them through the acquisition, or was that sort of a job that you took on?
I merged with them. So I was an associate in a clinic that was purchased by them. Oh gosh, it's probably been 7-8 years now. And what's so nice about Vetcor is they do what they say they're going to do. And I've had multiple conversations with them as far as the highest levels of leadership, and they're genuine in what they say that they'll follow through. And they're very committed to the veterinarian having local control. And so my interaction with them has been very, very positive. And because of that local control, and I'm so blessed as far as that they give me the freedom to do things like this, right? So I'm still spraying dogs in the morning. So I'm so thankful that I get to practice medicine and have a side hustle. I haven't had any experience as far as directly working for another corporate consolidator, but I have high praise for them.
That's interesting. And so what is their message? Because these consolidators, we had another one from Rare Breed, the new one, and then they all have different sort of direction that they're taking. And I think there's close to 50 of them right now. So what is the message that Vetcor is sending out there when they're going and talking to these practices to be acquired, and how do they feel they're different?
Local control. That's their biggest message. Yep, you as the veterinarian remain the veterinarian.
So is it the medical side of things or the business? Because from what I understand, then there's various shades of it, from Mars having most of control, and then to VCAs, and then you trickle down to things like NVA that has less control, or as they claim. And then there's various degrees of success of running the business when you have less control. So how are they achieving that? And is that something on your agenda to help them do? Are they controlling the business on the payroll side of things and just the business, and then the medicine is separate? Or how is this, like, where's the line? Where do they draw the line between the control and no control?
So they're very much on local control. And as a chief of staff, so in the two practices that I directly manage, I make a whole lot of decisions. Now, obviously, there's guardrails. I'm going to exaggerate. If I say, hey, I'd like to buy a new Mercedes and put that on the company bill, they're going to say, well, Dr. Smiley, that's probably not the most appropriate way to spend the money. But outside of that exaggerated example, I have lots of control in the sense of hiring, payroll. Hey, I'd like to do this. I recently wanted to promote one of the lay staff to a higher position and give her a significant raise because she's going to be good for the practice. And they helped me. Yep, that makes sense. I mean, I had to justify it. So on the spectrum, they are very much as far as we trust the veterinarian and the local leadership to make high quality decisions.
Yeah, we've got so many questions here. It's just like I feel like we could talk all day, Dr. Smiley. It's pretty fun. So in the past, we've got a note here that you've hosted some hackathons to connect the collective intelligence of veterinarians. I want to dig into that a little bit, maybe hear a little bit of the topics that you would have tackled with that kind of collective, and how you even got the idea to do that. I just find it very interesting, and especially around innovation. It sounds like the kind of whole idea of collective intelligence is pretty cool. So can you speak to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the Texas A&M, the Innovation Summit, Aaron Massacre's party down there.
Oh, you know that guy, right? That Aaron guy.
Yeah, mildly famous. A good guy. And so we were down at his show, and it's just a great place to go. And so I was sitting around having drinks after and just reflecting and talking to a physician, Dr. Sandy Pullum, and a great guy and very much of an innovator. And we were talking about as far as different challenges. He said, well, you should do a hackathon. And I said, oh, okay, well, what's a hackathon? So he explained it to me and how they do it. And so then what I did is I called my alma mater and I said, I'd like to do a hackathon. They said, oh, all right, let's do a hackathon. So the first thing that we did was inappropriate elimination in cats. And we brought together ideation specialists. There's a center at the University of Illinois called the Siebel Center, and they're all about collective thinking. And so it was neat. So we brought them in. We did ideation and brought engineers and architects and veterinary students and people from the community, and then discussed as far as how can we better solve this problem of feline inappropriate urination.
What were the outcomes?
The computer science people were crazy smart. And so what they did is the Wise Cam. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I mean, these $25 cameras that are just incredible as far as the algorithms that they can pump out. I mean, it's just incredible. So the winning idea was to be able to basically make a predictive model by using the Wise cams to see where the cat inappropriately urinated, then to be able to predict and give that data to the veterinarian of what was going to happen in the future. So that was the winning idea.
That is
Incredible.
interesting.
Yeah, incredible. It's
Now, I know, 25, then I had to go home and buy a couple Wise cams because I'm like, oh, they couldn't be this good and this cheap. And sure enough, they are. Those things are incredible.
Thanks so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. We're pretty social people, so you'll find us on every social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at the veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening.